Guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you all. I feel delighted to welcome you all to the maiden edition of this policy roundtable titled the Asiwaju Scorecard. The Asiwaju Scorecard series, where we are expected to discuss the state of the economy and enhancing the power sector. Let me say a big thank you to the APC professional forums for inviting me to be part of this discussion, especially at a critical period of global economic difficulties, of which the present administration, under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is working hard to address some of these challenges. Therefore, I consider this roundtable as part of your contribution to sensitize Nigerians to understand some of the policies and programs of this administration, as well as to appreciate the modest achievements so far recorded. Now that the economy is shifting towards renewable and sustainable energy sources, the use of cheap and clean compressed natural gas (CNG) has now become a reality under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. On infrastructure, Mr. President has approved the construction and completion and rehabilitation of several road projects across the country, to include the Kano-Abuja Road Project, Kano Eastern Bypass Road Project, the 700-kilometer Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, which is recently awarded, the 1,000-kilometer Badagry-Sokoto Road, renewed Hope housing cities and estates now being built in 13 states of the country. As a start, the Ajakuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline and the Lagos-Kaduna-Kano-Daura-Katsina-Jibia-Maradi rail line, with the largest railway station in Kano, which will make Kano not only the capital of the country, that now peaks at 14,000 megawatts. Our oil production has recently increased from 1,200 barrels per day, 1,700 barrels per day, as a result of the Mr. President's Tinubu and oil vandalization. On the party, we are gradually restructuring our party into a truly grassroots progressive party. We have directed our state chapters to liaise with their respective governors and other stakeholders to ensure that we have full-fledged functional offices in every political ward in the state, to enable our members across the country to have symbolic representation in their neighborhood. In fact, what we are saying is that all our party offices must be physically habitable and functionally operational in Abuja. Subsequently, the program will be formally launched in Niger State at a date to be announced. The aim of the registration exercise is to have a comprehensive data on our membership for planning purposes. In order to institutionalize the progressive ideology in the body politic of our great country, we have concluded arrangements for the establishment of the National Institute of Progressive Study. The National Secretariat has gotten a certificate of recognition from the Corporate Affairs Commission and the blessing of other relevant stakeholders that included the Ministry of Education. We are moving to direction whereby our party will have a distinct identity which will lead to a distinct philosophy and a distinct ideology. The Institute seeks to facilitate training of party members, promoting the ideals of good governance and practice of progressive ideology and political best practices. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to reaffirm my commitment to the ideals of our great party to set new standards and benchmarks in the nation's democratic sphere and ensuring the sustenance and continuation of the APC government at all levels. Even though it is not yet an election period, we are reinvigorating with the party to ensure that come 2027, we will retain and get new state governors, as well as Mr. President to secure another mandate to continue with his government's policies and programs. We've also constituted at the national level a reconciliation committee that will reconcile all aggrieved party members, and such committee will be established as a state organizing this important forum. Thank you and God bless.
Can we give the national chairman of the APC, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, a rousing round of applause. Thank you so very much for such a very illuminating speech about the progress made so far. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, this is the APC Professionals Forum Asiwaju Scorecard series, and we're looking at the economy and power today. We're delighted and indeed inestimably honored to have in our presence the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, most distinguished Senator Kashim Shettima, who is here ably represented by the Special Advisor in the Office of the President on General Duties, Dr. Aliu Modibo. Can we give a rousing round of applause? He would come and deliver the Vice President's speech. We make welcome, most respectfully, Dr. Aliu Modibo. Thank you so very much.
His Excellency, our elder statesman, chairman of our great party, the most distinguished Indian man, you heard his name, today he is here in person. From the office of Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by expressing the deep apologies of Mr. Vice President for his inability to be here. Monday with a lot of tasks and activities at State House, so they are at this moment in series of meetings. So he drafted me quickly to be here. And when listening to the speech of the APC chairman, you know, I recall as I was talking to him that I will read his prepared speech, but if there is anything, can I say, make a remark on it? And he said, you are free to do so. And I want to, with his permission, say before I read the speech, that when the chairman of the APC Stakeholders Forum is reading his remarks, he brought out a lot of our achievements. But we want to tell Nigerians that even though we are trying very hard to surmount all the obstacles, we are not running away from the reality of the moment. And we also are not taking away their rights of criticizing us because we asked for this job. Because that is what Mr. President has been saying on numerous occasions. We asked for the job and we have gotten it, and we are not running away or shying away from surmounting the obstacles. All we ask Nigerians is prayers. Pray for the leadership of the country and pray for Nigeria. Inshallah, God will answer our prayers and we will overcome all these troubles. Now I read the speech of His Excellency the Vice President. It is a rare honor to reflect on the mandate handed to us by the great people of Nigeria in the midst of not only refined minds but also stakeholders of our great party, the All Progressive Congress. This is one gathering to whom we don't have to struggle to explain that we inherited a burden that tests the look in the country, that the economic and geopolitical pressures before us are not easy tasks. More than this is a gathering of progressive believers in both the Nigerian project and the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the solution to these administrations has rolled out are designed to deal with the remnants of long-standing issues that have undermined our economy head-on, rather than options for temporary fixes. This is essential for the health and future of our nation. These decisions are to guarantee the course of our nation for generations to come, and instead of postponing the setbacks for our children and their children. Indeed, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has made the difficult but necessary choices to ensure Nigeria's long-term stability and prosperity are never in doubt. He has chosen a path that, although demanding, promises to save our nation from immigration, which has grown to alarming levels over the past years. We came at a time that demanded interventions to and end untenable practices that threaten our economic survival. A time that required decisive action to redirect resources towards more productive sectors of our economy, and we do not treat this path with malice. This is so because we believe that government is a continuum, and our administration had to make choices that are for our collective good. We took on the challenge of steering the nation through this economic storm, fully aware of the sacrifices ahead. Yet, we have remained committed to our policies, which have already started showing positive results. The administration provides a clear framework for our policies and programs. They set out to drive job creation, economic growth, food security, poverty eradication, access to capital, the rule of law, anti-corruption efforts, and inclusive development overall. These initiatives are not just plans on paper. They are actions being implemented to create and boost local production. The ongoing Renewed Hope housing scheme promises to address the housing deficit and stimulate economic growth. Similarly, we are also focused on reducing unemployment and also underemployment through various initiatives, including the outsourcing of the Nigerian Initiative Investigative Enterprises, as well as the expansion of national MSME clinics. These programs are designed to create more jobs, opportunities, and foster economic inclusivity. Our commitment to education is evident to the launch to empower our youth and ensure that they have the resources needed to succeed. And I assure you that fellow stakeholders, in our quest to save the nation, transparency and accountability in governance, we are waging a timeless war against corruption, with high-profile cases demonstrating our dedication to this cause. The ongoing digitization of revenue collection across all government sectors is expected to yield significant results and enhance the transparency we have promised the people of Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in our quest, we must recognize that we are not here to cut corners. The path we have chosen involves necessary sacrifices, but these are essentials for securing a bright future for Nigeria. Our economic indicators will improve as we continue to implement our policies, and we are confident that significant growth is on the horizon. By identifying individuals and groups masterminding these setbacks and profiting from them, the results of our interventions are promising, and we are proud of the progress made in strengthening the Naira. As leaders, we must shoulder the responsibility of our decisions. We must be guided by data and clear vision for our nation. This is why we also appeal for patience and collective effort from all Nigerians as we work towards a future of safety, prosperity, and optimism that serves all. Thank you, and God bless the
Can we give Dr. Modibo a rousing round of applause, not only for the clarity of this administration to present. I will also follow Dr. Modibo's suit when he recognized the presence of the goals of this session, the discourse on the economy. And for the first panel, we will be looking at the state of the Nigerian economy and Tinubunomics, the economic plan of His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Tinubunomics, the economy of it, the blueprint, the underlying and the overarching essences and nuances of this administration, which has seen quite a few, glowing dots and glimmers along the way. Because as it is right now, this year of renewed hope for a better Nigeria, we have seen quite a few things. Nigeria's credit rating has improved with global financial services. Urgency and terrorism has actually receded, and we're also seeing how Nigeria astronomically got investment pledges worth over $14 billion from one single event, the G20 summit. Asiwaju was speaking. He emphasized the issue of the petrol subsidy. For those who would like to just pen it down, we saved, or Nigeria saved, through Tinubunomics, over 1 trillion naira in just 2 months of removing the petroleum subsidy. So now let's go to the heart of the matter. Tinubunomics, the state of the Nigerian economy. It's my singular honor and privilege to invite Professor Oke Ikechukwu, the Executive Director, Development Special Panda, to just the finery and pomp of just banal conversation. He has the depth and the requisite insight to give us a paper of substance. You're most warmly welcome, Prof.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vice President has ably represented the Chairman of the APC, my elder brother, BOT Chairman. I say my elder brother because I met him first in the Ministry of Transport. He did not just adopt me, he confiscated me to others whom he met in peculiar circumstances. Well, after the moderators' comments on the achievements of the federal government, foreign direct investment, the new rating and perception of Nigeria all over the world, among other things, what else am I going to say? My task is actually to set the tone for the panel session by making a few observations with emphasis on the things to keep in mind when thinking about the government and the economy. The first is the comment made by the representative of the Vice President. He said, we are not denying the challenges. We are not averse to criticism. The simple solution in that is that we're all Nigerians, the problems are real, irrespective of party. If there's inflation, all of us are suffering it. If we're in government and taking decisions, it doesn't make us all know. Therefore, criticize if you must, we'll listen. And the evidence of that listening has become apparent. For the extreme critics, the perception is, oh, there's policy flip-flop. The other time they talked about student loan, then they changed it. They talked about the expatriate levy, they changed it. Now, cybersecurity levy. That's one perspective. The alternative perspective is that every policy intends public good. When it gets onto the field and is seen to have challenges, an intelligent government recalibrates and comes back again. That for me is the perspective that matters. So when we are talking Tinubunomics, it's not just about numbers. It's first of all about attitude. I've also had it said that, can you see how many decisions the central bank has taken? The only person who stumbles is the person who is moving in a certain direction. If you sit in your house, you will stumble, but you will not achieve anything. So this whole idea of constant, deliberate, desperate measures to see what can be done is actually the underlying element to notice, because at the level of consciousness, anybody can reel out figures. They brought in this amount of money, yes, but how? So I thought I should place that on the table, and then also go on to say, you say you want me to talk about state of the economy. Are we not all seeing the economy? Once you speak of the economy, three concepts come to the mind of the average person: the pains of daily living, the impact of fuel subsidy, inflation, among other things. And all of these variables are present in an environment where you have mostly stagnant income. So the general perception is, do they want us to die? The other question to ask is, take a policy, for instance, on unification of the exchange rate, the removal of oil subsidy. Can anybody here remember any of the candidates who, while contesting for presidency in the last election, did not say he will remove subsidy or that he will unify exchange rate? You see, these are the things to take into consideration so that you are not unduly on the defensive on a matter on which there's a consensus on what needed to be done. Now, that's different from the matter of consequences. It's from the angle of consequences that people are raising issues. Imagine, for instance, that at the point of announcing the removal of subsidy, the next day there's a rollout of measures. That would have been wonderful. So it was a level of consequential action, not the decision itself. So when APC communication goes around looking drowsy and feeling guilty, when in fact he has a point to make, we all agree we should do this. We've done it because we're the ones in this place. And that's the important thing about when you're talking to economics. Look for the points to make that matter. And I'll go back to an irrelevant point. Before the elections, there was a crisis of a Muslim ticket. Am I correct? Am I correct? Well, where was the crisis? I didn't see it. The man in question was Governor of Lagos State. At that time, I was on the editorial board of The Guardian. We started a comment. I was chairman of the comment, which is now The Nation. I didn't know he was a Muslim. That's one. In his house, you have non-Muslims under his roof, yes. What kind of cabinet did he run? So instead of using that to argue, people were busy just saying work on television. So this whole idea of economics, please, is not about numbers only. It's also about the disposition towards national development based on policies. And anybody who knows an eternal policy that does not change based on reality, the person should tell us, because the only way you can have, if the person is sure, he must be living in heaven. But as long as we're on earth, these things will keep happening. So I thought we should know that. The other point to note, of course, is that the crisis, now this is globonomics, is that there's clear, present, and increasing global economic pressures, negative pressures. There's increasing global hardship. The most indebted nation is the US. Then there's the deep web, not the internet. The deep web has 90% of the criminality you find on the internet. That's where the real part of the real crisis is. That's part of where the pressure is coming from. That's where nations are sold and bought. All of these things, are we taking them into account in having this conversation? So we isolate ourselves. Oh, this is Nigeria, this is what the government of Nigeria. If you contextualize it, without denying the fact that the average person is having a terrible time today, but you operate with a sense of history. Is anybody surprised? People couldn't plant last year, people couldn't plant 2 years ago because of insecurity, and you expect that in 2024, not having done what you do in 2023, by 2024 you start harvesting. It doesn't work like that. I'll comment briefly on that before. So the pressures are real. The only thing that can give us the anticipated long-term benefits of a Tinubu economics or that of anybody is increased national productivity. It's not happening. Farmers, many cannot harvest, many cannot plant. In the Northeast, in particular, what has happened is re-desertification. If you leave a place which is an arid or semi-arid area, over time, To reclaim that place, you need 2 years of activity. Redesertification has taken place, and then insecurity undermines all of this. And let's contextualize it further still. November, December 2021, or thereabouts, or 22, some of us were guests of the multinational joint task force in N'Djamena, Chad, and I was there for 10 days. The armed forces of Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, and Niger, the 4 countries affected. What is really the problem? Why is it not going? If you recall, when Buratai retired and was interviewed, he said insurgency wasn't about to end. So instead of doing the usual thing, coming to hall and say we're talking to stakeholders who we just finished and go to their houses, we went to look for community leaders, traditional rulers, women leaders. I find this frightening. The women told us, once they were sure there would be non-attribution, said, listen, our sons are there. That's the only way we can keep them alive. These people in uniform will come, do some killing, chase them away, but when they go, they'll come back for us. So we've worked out a containment strategy. That was scary to hear, but that's the truth of the matter in the past. So the question of productivity is linked with security, and that's part of what has to be taken into account. The other thing to be taken into account is that no soldier will come to my village and get maximum intelligence except my people help him, true or false. So we are looking away from the responsibility of communities, traditional rulers, etc., in the matter of national security, and pretending that once we send in people who are trained security professionals and soldiers, the solution will come. No, it's the need to return to a sense of community. So if you have a government that's telling you, if you're angry with us, tell us. If you criticize us, we won't mind. That government must also be seen to be saying, know that your community belongs to you. If a stranger comes in, you ought to know. Not the DSS man, not the military commander. You're the one who will tell him we saw somebody. That's why you have communities where you have kidnapping dens and the rest of it. And, I thought I should put that on the table too. Then, I mentioned policies. Then the question of data. The other point to note, not too long ago, I think 3 weeks ago or 5, the government spoke about education census. Am I correct? Education census, where you have the census of all schools, tertiary, and the rest of it. Now, it's another step towards deepening the emphasis on data for planning. And I'll cite an example. 2006, 2007, I was head of communications, Federal Ministry of Education, and we had very reliable information from DFID, from UNESCO, from the EU, that the number of secondary schools in Nigeria was 9,700. The minister didn't believe it, I didn't believe it. We carried out a school census and confirmed 14,543 secondary schools. So we are running education without data. We are supervising why without knowing where the schools were. The second point was the one of number of children out of school children. Oh, Nigeria has 10 million children out of school. That's terrible. Nobody noticed that we were, as at that time, I've been saying that for 10 years. But look at the real share. The 2005-2006 census, if you follow that census and the age demographics, the number of children that ought to be in primary school was 47 point something million by the national census figures. The number of children in school by the school census was 23 point something. So at the primary level alone, we have more than 22 million children not in school. Fact, statistics available. So when the government says it now wants to do, it means that data will become relevant to human capital planning. At the secondary level too, using the same census figures, the number that ought to have been in secondary school at that time was 33.9 million. The actual number in school, 6.4. Now, at 27 million to 23 from primary, you see that we have no idea about the number of children out of school. Today, they've moved it up. Oh, there are now 13 million children out of school in Nigeria, the worst in Africa. No. There's hardly any state in Nigeria that doesn't have up to 500,000 children out of school. We have 36 states, that's over 18 million. And there are states that have 2 million or more out of school. So the role of data in planning, in economics, in every aspect, has become more critical. And that's the issue to take into account when we are talking whether to economics or anything. That gestures are not enough. That don't tell us you spent 10 naira building this table. That's an announcement of expenditure. Tell us that there's a table because of which it's now possible for children to study well. That's human interest information and public communication. That is what we need. The talk about expenses have been too much of our history. And what is the imaginary we should be sustained? The value of every step being taken. That will have more impact. And to end now, because mine is simply to set the tone for the panel discussion. I've spoken about data, government should avoid empty gestures. You know, somebody cries out, you come and do this, you announce it. No. And that was really when the government didn't celebrate 100 days. In fact, I recall I wrote an article on the back page. Don't celebrate 100 days in office. It's insulting. You enumerate all kinds of things, make all kinds of pictures, you will see little else for the next 4 years. You're elected to govern. Get on with it. 100 days, and what happened? After that, are you going on retirement? My final point is on the opposition. Before APC came to power, it was a very competent opposition. I don't think in history we have had that kind of opposition that decimated, thoroughly demolished the PDP. Sometimes with incorrect information. Because if you looked at part of the communication, oh, we're going to have $1 to 1 naira, anybody who looked into the nation at that time will know that it's a lie. Anybody also who knew the meetings the PDP was holding, because before the election there was concern that if we win, when we win, because they were sure they will win, by July we won't be able to pay salaries. What are we going to do? APC didn't have that, and he was telling us 1 naira to $1. Petrol will now be 1 liter for dash, then you pay for the next one. But what happened? He took on the issues that touched the heart of the people, that pointed to good governance and let people say, we want this. But what I see, I may be mistaken in case I'm the only one looking, is an opposition that mistakes press release or alternative ideological submissions on how to govern. I would want a more vibrant opposition. Some of the things they are against, rather than just condemn them, to suggest something in addition. And the note on which I will end is, there is nobody here who is not paying more for fuel. There's nobody here who is not paying more for food. The other point is that there's nobody here who is not, you know, there's one qualification we all have in common, all of us in this hall right now. Look at the person around you. Every one of us is prime target for kidnap, true or false? True or false? We all look healthy. We came in good cars. We use air-conditioned vehicles. Our shoes are not dusty. Just sighting any of us, somebody tells him, so if I'll catch this one. And this singular fact alone tells us that it's about our country. And that the ultimate casualties for a badly governed state is every citizen. So let's not see this as about. Let the opposition do its job. Put the APC on the spot, harass it the way it had. The APC harassed the PDP until it threw it out of power. And then the APC picks lessons from it. If there's a vibrant opposition and a determined government, you can only have a better governed nation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
So you have to take your place. Yes. Oh, sorry. This might be. Can we give Professor? Yes, I think maybe the first might be ideal. Can we give Professor Oke Ikechukwu a rousing round of applause? Thank you so very much, for such a very illuminating, sweeping overview of the economy, giving us the state of the Nigerian economy and Tinubu economics. At this point, I'll call the panelists this particular session. We have had the lead, and I'd like to invite Gabriel Idahosa, President of the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to kindly join us. Can we give him a rousing round of applause? Let's welcome. We'd also like to welcome Professor Pius Olarijuwaju, the President of Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, to also please join us. And then the moderator for this panel will be His Excellency Nkem Okeke, PhD Economics and former Deputy Governor of Anambra State. Can we please make welcome the moderator for the session, His Excellency Nkem Okeke. This panel will be very fast-paced, very brisk. Actually, on the program, it's allocated just 15 minutes. We have like 15 minutes for the panel. Okay, I'd also like to call Mr. Aminu Nyako, economist and public policy expert, the MD of Sefo Free Trade Zone. Yes, you're most warmly welcome. Thank you so very much. Aminu Nyako, economist and public policy expert, to complete the panel. At this point, I think I should hand over to His Excellency Nkem Okeke to preside over this 15 minutes brisk panel on the state of the economy.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My job is rather simple, just to try and tap the brains of the panelists. And I will rather start my left with the Prof, who gave the lead speech. Prof, I listened to you, your speech was very lucid, right to the point, and you talked about national productivity being low, that's the key to development. But people are still in pain, people are still rolling, people are still in hardship. Do you think there is anything the government can do that Australia can do in the short run to make people feel better, make people feel like there's hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, I think so. Anything the government can do to increase the expendable income of citizens will make a difference. On what do we spend? We spend on food, we spend on education, among other things. So imagine that the government announces that for the next term, there will be no school fees at secondary and tertiary level. That's money nobody will have to spend. It will be instant. Or you announce that, okay, the first semester is coming to an end. Let all the tertiary institutions send in the list of their students. You already know their fee. Their names exist. You refund the money. That can happen. It's affordable. The federal government can do it. Then you look at the secondary level. With that, even if you're complaining that you're suffering, your salary is not coming up, there's a tolerable perception of care and visible intervention. But the one of planning big programs, we're going to, you've seen the story of palliatives, where the government good intention is captured by those who are thinking of plunder. You saw what happened when the federal government planned to ease transport costs during Christmas celebrations. The trains were free, but they were driving up and down empty. It was reported, people saw in the 2 videos, those who running the thing would secure all the, and you go there, they'll tell you there are no tickets, but if you pay, you get more. So that element of subversive, quote unquote, patriotism has to be addressed. But the key points I'm making, whatever will lead to higher expendable income in the pocket of people is important. That the areas to isolate, expenditure on education, expenditure on feeding, among other things. Those are specifics, and they can be immediate.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for me, please. My next question goes to the President, Chartered Institute of Bankers. The president has talked about, or rather, the CBN governor mentioned something about increasing the capital base for the banks. Now I know that part of the problem that's been had in the past is that inflation has been skyrocketing, and you find companies, banks not willing to do long-term investment because they're not sure what the real return will be. Do you expect this increase in capital base to help long-term investments or productivity to increase?
The effort of the organizers of this program is the opportunity. Governance is about getting feedback, and the feedback is very, very important so that you can make some corrections as time goes on. And I want to thank the lead speaker this morning, who said that what I really want this party to take home is the way they've been responding to people's opinion about issues. If you look at the recapitalization issue, there are two fundamental things that very unique about the recapitalization being done under Tinubu when compared with the previous one. The previous one was like, a directive was given. The time frame was very, very short. Within 6 months, banks are expected, to increase their capital base to 25 billion, and that sent some of our very good banks that we knew into the grave because the time was just too short. They could not consolidate within that point in time. Another thing that is also very credible about recapitalization is the fact that it has allowed banks, it has categorized banks according to their capacity. You don't tell everybody to go and bring 25 billion. When you do that, you have created a problem ab initio. And when you look at what happened on the 28th of March, 2024, when the Cardoso mentioned that mention like a signal to those who are going to increase the capital base of banks, and that banks had already started preparing, and that's how it should be. And one other fundamental thing that is, because we need to get this background so that we should commend the government where they are doing very well. They gave the banks that rather than giving you 6 months, this time around we are going to give you 24 months, that 2 year duration. We believe that those things are very apt and in line also with things like retained profit will not be capitalized, because we have realized that these are some of the loopholes that were exploited to the detriment of the ecosystem. So the party or those people in charge of that policy, the CBN governor, did rightly well. Foreign exchange, thank God the chairman of the BOT is a fellow of the institute and a reputable former managing director. He will know, we all know that it's not easy to just call somebody from his country and say, oh, come and finance me and everything. What large tickets? Look, for example, those of them that were given that asked regionally, that is about 20 million. And non-interest bank that we thought is like a microfinance, they have to provide 10 billion. We believe that if this come into the system, it's definitely going to give these banks the opportunity of being able to meet it. It will be raised somewhere, and that is our capital. That's the set. When this goes to that place, it will deepen that sector of the economy. Be able to tap that because it is both it's like a double-edged sword. But if we give the money when it comes in, and you are able to manage it very well, you find out that the cost of fund, that's the lending rate, we nosedive, we go down. But if it is not properly managed, rather than cost of fund nosediving, it will lead to inflation, and that is where I just believe, because some of the eggs still continue, because we believe that advocacy is needed both at the pre-level before this program and also after the program. We need advocacy. We need to enlighten the people. We need to let people know that we are not the lead speaker who said that this job is for every one of us. We have a role to play. In CIBM, one of the things we did immediately is that we look at the loopholes, what we encountered in the previous recapitalization. There were a lot of due diligence was not done.
Some people marry on the 29th, and you can just, I call it one of my write-up as marina marriage, where you just go to on lunch and you pick a woman and you think you are picking a wife. Definitely you run a risk. So this time, the time frame is right, but individually we have a role to play. It's easy to continue to do the advocacy issue. Then beyond that, we intend to have a collaboration with SEC so that we can change the way to go. Digitalization will come into play in this matter so that everything, and more importantly too, we guide against the system to distort against the economy. I just believe it's a win-win approach, and I believe all of us have a role. As CIBM, we have made up our mind that this thing will work, and it will work for the benefit of this country. And like Winston Churchill earlier pointed out, success is not final, failure is not fatal. What counts is the courage to continue. So I want to admonish the party that they should continue to follow this path of growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is to Gabriel Peter-Hosa. One of the problems we have in the country is that we don't have enough foreign exchange. And that seems to put pressure on the Naira. The president has been traveling quite a bit, engaging countries, trying to establish trade connections with businesses in Nigeria. Do you think our businesses have the capacity? Are they able to do such engagement and then be able to trade and hopefully attract the needed fund into the country? Is it possible?
Well, thank you. We have always been asked this question of foreign currency and foreign exchange value in a lot of our conversations, naturally, as Lagos Chamber of Commerce. And we have made it clear and very clear again. The only country that has a strong currency on a sustainable basis is a country that exports more and exports much more. That is the only country that has a strong currency on a sustainable basis. And we have had to remind our members, whenever we have conversations, that the central bank does not have a factory under the building, either in Abuja office or in Tinubu Square, where it can print dollars and give those of us who want dollars to import. We can attract foreign currency from two main sources abroad that are sustainable. One is our diaspora remittances, which is sustainable. The other is foreign direct investment that is based on viable businesses that are bankable. There's no foreign direct investor that is coming because he likes Nigeria. Because Nigeria has the very beautiful fundamentals, 200 million people, a very large market. Those are fundamentals. The environment that decides investment is the management of the economy. How do the managers of the economy manage it? That tells me as a foreign investor that my investments, taking into account all the risk of doing business in this country, will be protected. And that if there are issues, the justice system will protect my rights as an investor on a sustainable basis. So these are the things that are critical. The central bank governor at any point in time is doing much what you can describe as firefighting. When there is fire in the city, you call the fire department. And if there is fire here, come and do it. So the governor can be doing firefighting with monetary policy on a short-term basis. Over the next 1 or 2 years, what do we do to stabilize the market? How do we get some foreign inflows into the market? That is what a central bank governor can do on a case-by-case basis. But the countries that you are sure that their currency will be very strong in the next 5, 10, 15 years are the usual suspects. The countries that are the biggest exporters in the world, Germany, Japan, India, China. You don't need a wizard in the central bank of these countries to make their currency strong. So I think it's important to keep saying it, we take every opportunity to say it, that we must export more. We have 5 South African exporters. We have an export department, an export group. Just the number of exporters, not the volume. So we need to turn export into a mass movement. We need to evangelize. And we have anything you can export. From the minerals, from tourism, for example. There's the Ghanaians diaspora remittances. The CBN has approved a number of new financial institutions, which means that a bank of Switzerland can come into that financial center in Nigeria, bring any amount of money, and keep it for as long as it can, and close. Unfortunately, that project was not completed. In about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, the Lagos state government has, by executive order, set up the Lagos International Financial Center. Now, those are the kind of things that can bring in foreign currency. When you create those centers where you have free flows, apart from those specific possibilities, an international financial center, a very expanded international money transfer environment where money can come in, an environment for foreign direct investors to feel safe.
Thank you very much. So for me, agriculture is the key sector to development. It's a sector that has the opportunity for employment, greater number of employments, a sector that has the opportunity to create entrepreneurs. Do you think that restrictions policies are in line to achieving that? Now, take away the issue of security, because I know we've all talked about that, so don't focus on security. Tell us whether our policy in agriculture is in the right direction to be able to achieve the administration's goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I think on this panel. I'll give you a bit of context as to what the private sector's view on agriculture is and how it's the current administration's policies are working. I would first like to commend this panel, this body, professional body, because I think when they invited me over, they said they wanted a very honest view because we are all Nigerians here and we actually want to see the right policies being put forth. Once this administration came about, they declared a state of emergency on food security, and I think that in itself has a very big impact in how you actually administer policies, because declaring a state of emergency removes red tape and tries to expedite how you implement policies from a government level. But what I'm here to say today is, as a nation, I think we need to understand very clearly that in the 1960s there was a paradigm shift in how agriculture and trade works. Prior to 1960, most aggregation and agricultural activity in Nigeria were being off-taken by the British. And they did everything in place to off-take product from Nigeria that automatically gave us FX. So we knew about the rice, the groundnut mills in Kano, the maize fields in Adamawa and other places, but we had a direct off-taker that gave us foreign exchange. After independence happened and the British withdrew, what now happens is that nobody has actually taken up that gap of immediate off-take. Most people don't realize when you see the groundnut pyramids in Kano, one thing you don't realize in the picture is that it was on the line of railway. If you look at that picture, there was always a railway line there that moved product to Lagos and expanded out. Nobody has been able to go into that deficit of organized offtake. And what started to happen is that the language of Nigeria changed from we are moving product out of the country to let us feed ourselves. And as such, our FX started to dwindle over the last 40 years, but we never kind of understood what was happening because we tried to now encapsulate ourselves because we have a large market, we have a lot of people, we are enterprising as a people, but we started to only focus on feeding ourselves. And as such, FX in agriculture started to dwindle and has started to affect all other parts of the economy. It's important for us to realize this distinction because I think if we do not realize this, there is no intervention that you do in the agricultural sector that would realize the gains of what you're saying, which is export, 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 to be able to reach that demand. Now, as a private sector person, you will then ask yourself, what do you require? If the language of the administration changes from let us feed ourselves, let us close our borders, to look, we are going to become the #1 exporter of shea butter. We are going to be the #1 exporter of milk products. We are going to export rice. When you start doing that kind of language, then the FDI you're looking for, big business, that are now saying, okay, Nigeria is ready to come into the world stage to become a mass producer. How then do we bring our capital to take advantage of the things we know Nigeria has, which is arable land, which is enterprising people, which is water resources, which is livestock resources, and we actually have the land mass to produce 80%. We have the climate conditions to produce 80% of the food requirements of the world. No other country really has this kind of things. You know, when we talk here, we say Nigeria has 6 climatic zones out of the 8 in the world. So it tells you our mangroves, our rainforests, our Sahel, our desert regions, our savanna regions, every kind of food the world requires can actually be produced in Nigeria. But we don't realize it. We only look at it as a staple product. We want to feed ourselves, so we're taking maize, sorghum, rice. But I don't know if you know about gypsum. We have it in abundance. Gum, Arabic gum, that Coca-Cola uses to make Coke. It is scattered in Jigawa and all these other places. But nobody looks at it because we're not export driven, and we're using our Arabic gum now to starch our car when it can be giving us FX. These kinds of things are the dichotomy, while people abroad says Nigeria is a sleeping giant. When foreigners come into this country, they say there's money on the floor, but we don't seem to see it. We don't seem to be able to harness it. We are not able to leverage what God has given us or endowed upon us, because the mindset, the language, the drive of previous administrations has been, let us feed ourselves. We have to go into the global community with the confidence we know and the dignity we know that Nigerians possess, and push into the world in that manner. I will just round up by saying, as a private sector person in agriculture, we are in the dairy sector. We produce milk. We aggregate milk now from 18,000 farmers in the Northeast. We participate in Taraba, Adamawa, and Gombe. Milk is the most perishable product in agriculture. In 2 hours, if you're not able to cool it into 4 degrees, you lose the product. Now, within that context, it tells you that my company is participating in the most difficult sector of agriculture in Nigeria and globally today. But we are prospering. Why? Why is Sebore farms in Adamawa State in the Northeast that has been plagued or has the blanketed impression that it's an insecure zone? How are we able to operate within that space and find success? It's a couple of things. One, we know what our people have. We know the resources they have and they have to bear. 2, we've invested in energy that gives us comparative advantage within the Northeast, which is solar and batteries. So our factory is completely off-grid. It's powered by solar and batteries, and as such, it has given us energy independence. The dichotomy that you think of, that you tell you last week, if you looked at the newspapers, over 200 people died in Adamawa because of heat wave. In Adamawa State last week, the temperature went up to 48 degrees. So people were dying of heat, while you can put solar panels on your roof and be dying of cold. Like, the issue here we're thinking is that there is so much that Nigeria has been blessed with. We have to literally rejig our viewpoint on how we budget, how we talk, how we vision, so that we can start having the gains. And lastly, like I said, the 3 things is, we know what our people have. We've invested in the energy. You have to invest in infrastructure that would unlock it. What we did in our own is that we created 78 milk collection centers in local communities, powered by solar and batteries. Nobody realizes that our farm produces 5 megawatts of power. Adamawa State gets 7 megawatts of power. It is an issue. The reason I'm speaking this way is that I honestly believe that President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has the requisite competence, vision, and understanding of the economy to be able to push us to this vision. But I think the APC professional body has to also serve as a backbone, because professionals look and see those things, and you need to understand that we need to give him the maximum support for him to achieve it. Removing the subsidy was a bold move, a necessary move, and it is the only thing that could have sustained us to this level. For him doing that and showing the courage at the time to remove the subsidy told me a lot about what his drive and disposition is for improving Nigerian context. However, now, as an APC professional body and as Nigerians, irregardless, I think everything that are plaguing the country, which is unemployment, inflation, and FX, these three things are affecting every single person, irregardless of your party affiliation, irregardless of your demographic, whether you're a young Nigerian or old Nigerian, irregardless of your occupation. These things are affecting all of us. And it saddens me that when we go abroad now, Nigerians have started to lose confidence. Our confidence came from our buying power, that nobody fit to us anyhow because we get money for pocket. But the honest truth here is that we're now in an area of dwindling resources. We are in an area of dwindling resources, and when you're in an era of dwindling resources, how you go about change, how you go about spending money, how you go about allocating resources completely has to change. It is important at this juncture, I tell you, that we need to focus on only 5 things. Chairman, sir, I think you are in charge of the whole party, and I'm telling you that if you do not prioritize our limited resources in terms of, first and foremost, our national budget. I've worked in the National Assembly as SAA, in the 8th Assembly, so I know how our budgeting works. I am telling you that if we do not prioritize the limited resources we have in the next 24 months, we will be entering a serious problem because our population still grows, we still have debt payments to make, and as such, if the FX keeps devaluing, most of the things we require to be able to improve the Nigerian economy still have to be imported in. So it gets more and more expensive as we delay this kind of critical reforms that are required to move our country forward. But the 5 things we need to focus on our budget in, I think it needs to be 60% of the budget, because there are some things that need to happen in the interim. 1, security. 2, education. When you're in a devalued state, when you're in a devalued FX economy, your brains and your people become your #1 greatest asset. Nigerians were 220 million people, thereabouts. Even if you say 5% of them are educated, that is over 10 million people. That's countries in Europe. We have enough learned people that if you invest in education the right way, vocational skills, you can start exporting human beings they will remit their salaries back to their families. We have FX. We need to be able to focus on agriculture. Agriculture is the greatest leveler in the country. Every single senatorial district will tell you that they have farmers, and the farmers are cultivating something. In our own part of the country, Adamawa Central, we focused on milk. Our farmers, there's 2.1 million cows in Adamawa. Even if we sit down and say we're going to take 10% of that milk, that's 210,000 liters. Last I did a calculation of Brookstone in Kenya. They are currently processing 1 million liters of milk a day. That revenue is 72 billion a month. The kind of money in agriculture that everybody is participating in a very limited way, or in a very fragmented way, we need to come into agriculture and start to unlock the value in agriculture the way we need to. The 4th thing is energy. Each geopolitical zone in Nigeria has its comparative advantage in energy. In the Northeast, it is solar. In the Northwest, it is solar and wind. In the Middle Belt states, it is hydro. In the South, it is gas. In the South, everybody has what it can contribute into the country. So if you leverage what energy resources are within the geopolitical zones, you will unlock value. The fifth and last thing is infrastructure. That I'll be very specific about this. It is infrastructure that improves interstate commerce and export commerce. When I say infrastructure, I'm not talking about flyover over land. Flyover over land is not doing anything for the economy. Road that you see that connects Maitama and Pape is not infrastructure. Infrastructure are things that connect commerce. So you cannot trade. I'll just give you a bit of an anecdote. His Excellency Bala Glade is here. He was my dad's deputy governor. He had a program last, local apprenticeship scheme. In Fufore, he trained thousands of tailors. But guess what? After he left government, it collapsed. Why? If I can sew cloth and you can sew cloth, why will I pay you to sew cloth? Do you understand what I'm saying? Trade happens between regions that you are looking for something that I don't have, and I have something that you're looking for. That is what infrastructure should connect. And in my program up north, I'm looking for grass. I am here trying to plant elephant grass for cows, for the local communities. For me to do it, I'm in the savannah region. I have to do irrigation. I have to do soil analysis. I have to do a lot of things for my elephant grass to grow. I went to Delta State, Berege, elephant grass. Nobody is even doing anything. It's going in the wild. And I'm here spending resources in Adamawa State trying to cultivate my land to give me elephant grass. And within the same country, Delta State is just looking at it. And in fact, it befuddles the mind. Infrastructure in this regard, just using this example, is if you put a railway or something, in fact, use what the British did, barges from Enugu all the way to Garwa in Cameroon before pre-independence. They will cut grass that they are not doing anything for, build the grass, put it on a barge, in 6 hours in Adamawa, we will do the same thing, give our cows milk, put it inside jars, and send it down to the south where there is no cow. Like, within the same country, we are experiencing scarcity and abundance in the same country. It's important, I'm saying, give it this context, because if we do not do this within the next 24 months, I'm an economist by training. I'm a macroeconomist actually by training. So this agriculture is an offshoot of my education, not actually my drive. If you tell me what the scientific name for gamba grass is, I don't know. But I know what the grass can do to the economy. And I think it's this kind of practical wisdom we need to start to apply into all our discourse, all our drive. And I'm telling you that I've worked in National Assembly, and I'm telling you that if you do not adjust the budget to speak to these 5 priorities, we will be a total mess in the next 24 months. I think it scared everybody when FX went to 2000. It scared everybody because you come to realize that we'll be in an exploitative state as a country. Today we saw that a multinational decided to invest in Angola in oil and gas instead of Nigeria. And what was their main problem? What was their main critic about Nigeria, why they decided not to invest in Nigeria in the oil and gas sector? They said, we always spend our time debating and not doing. We have discourse without doing. Once you decide that Nigeria wants to become a lead exporter of food or lead exporter in human beings, which I don't blame anybody for Jaffa if they are going to sell money to their parents. The honest truth is, once you build a framework and you put your voice and your intent and the sincerity of purpose that you want to achieve that, it is easy. People will people will not want to come and invest in Nigeria to help Nigerians. There is you can't tell me now to go and invest in Belarus if I'm not going to get something from it. What is my business going to help Belarus? But you must build a framework that says, if I invest in Belarus, I will get money. You have to push the greed index of these multinationals to invest in Nigeria. They know we have the people, they know we have arable land, they know we have ports, they know we have markets. Create a framework, adjust the budget, and see money pour into Nigeria the way we want it. Thank you very much.
I think if 10% of our youth thought like Aminu, I think this country will go to a better place. I think we deserve a round of applause. I know I'm supposed to open up for maybe one or two questions, but there's a question I wanted to ask the Prof before I do that. Prof, we spent time blaming the federal government. They haven't done this, they haven't done that. But nobody seems to talk about the subnationals. The people live in the subnationals. They are not, there's no land for federal government. They're states, except maybe the FCT. So, do you see the subnationals, the governors, doing what they're supposed to do to make the lives of their people better?
The answer is no to a large extent, but again, to what extent is the blame? It's a question of the level of political consciousness. That's why somebody will stay in my village and complain about Tinubu government. He has a ward chairman, he has a councillor, he has a local government chairman, he has a governor. But he's angry with Asoro. And he doesn't know anything about Asoro. He doesn't know that the local government gets 120 million a month, out of which nothing is done. A bottle of pure water is not done. So that's the crisis and that's the challenge I find with political parties who don't understand the importance of political education. You were waiting for elections. It's towards the elections that they will become active. Whereas parties ought to be having periodic engagements, enlightening the people, etc. So at the sub-national level, there's no demand, there's limited political consciousness, and the governors are getting away with it. And they speak in the first person singular over any project. Okay, I'm coming to give you more. That is state point and all of that. But the other thing I would want to add to that is, in the earlier comments about what to do. The other thing that can be looked into also to improve your first question about this thing is, SMEs can have a tax-free year or 50% tax rebate, and they are all available, because there is a strong disconnect between revenue generating agencies and the active sectors of the economy. After the COVID experience, the FCT authorities were moving around. I think the bill was 350 to come and vacuum shops. Now my business has been shut down for a year. It's about to open, and I'll pay you 350 for spraying it. So that there also has to be that education. And it brings us to a couple of things. Jobs. The NDE is creating jobs. Government always announces the number of new jobs created. But is anybody taking inventory of job losses? Supposing 50,000 jobs are created, and it turns out that 53,000 jobs were lost in the same period, we have a deficit of 3. So that monitoring and evaluation and documentation is important. The other thing is, this government should audit the NDE, Nigeria Directorate of Employment. In the last 20 years or so, it's been very busy. Let's have inventory of all those you've empowered. They have phone numbers, they have addresses. Let's find how many of them are active, how many of them employ people. Because I speak from experience. When it started, they would send apprentices. So my mom was running, in those days you call it a fashion domestic science school. So there, you learn sewing, you learn cake making, you learn everything. It's a 2-year school, complete with certification. So they posted people to her. After about 6 months, the allowances stopped coming. And naturally, the thing was for the children to be settled. He said, no, she will always receive it. They are people's children. She doesn't care what government is doing. But the other thing was that it's been on for years. You go for their graduation, Some are to get sewing machines, and the sewing machines are given to them. As soon as the official who came to flag it off goes, most of the sewing machines are taken back. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going on all over the country. We need that audit so that the illusion of creating jobs doesn't exist. And you can be sure even those at headquarters will not know. These are some of the things that will impact, because it damages the image of government and conveys the impression of institutionalized swindle. Whereas the man on top is saying, wow, this is what I've done for them. But those to administer it further are not involved. Chairman of APC, as governor, you asked Nigerians to come to Kano that you have enough space for all the cattle. Nobody listened. Nobody listened. You did a second one at Naval District. Sir, as chairman, make that happen. The resources are there, the land is there, the water is there, people don't know, and they are talking about header. That is something that will be done, just like in their it will increase output. I remember your exact words. If you see the man walking the cattle area, you see suffering written up all over him, trekking all over the country. That's something to take up at this time because it's doable. Finally, unemployability index. We speak about employment index, unemployability index. I've gone to the university, I've got a certificate, but I didn't study. I either paid my lecturers or slept with them. I am totally unemployable until I'm retooled. That is an index nobody uses because the bulk of the job-seeking population fall within those you can't really employ because they have no skills of any type. None. They are damaged morally, they have no knowledge, they need to be retooled. And the other thing is, and that's the last observation is on infrastructure. Sir, we must make a distinction between education and education infrastructure. The last Federal Executive Council of the Buhari government, before it came the second time, the council approved the sum of, I think, 4.2 billion to build model secondary schools, 6 model secondary schools in the 6 geopolitical zones that will be exemplary. Fantastic idea. But what's the purpose of a school? To produce human capital. If you start that school, in 5 years you've not finished it. But if you take 4.2 billion and distribute it among the unity colleges, many of them don't have fences and all of that, by the very next year you see improvement in output. Cape State did the same thing, I think, even before the federal government, 4 point something to build new primary school, or that they painted the classroom. So these are the things, the distinction between, because we've spoken about the need to develop people and all of that, you need to make a distinction between the infrastructure for learning and actually the possibility of learning. In fact, it's good His Excellency is here. When he was governor, I remember the people you sent outside the country, sir, on different disciplines from Bauchi State. And one of them, I think, made the best result in aviation. These are things that distinction, I want to emphasize it. The distinction between education and learning infrastructure and actually education. You're building new schools, but you're not training teachers. You're building new schools, the teachers available are not being paid better. You're building new schools, you're not cut the tape, celebrate the classroom, but there's nobody to teach in those classrooms. That's something to also worry about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just 2 questions. I know I just got to know that we have exceeded the time. One from this side and one from that side. If there are no questions, then I can end the panel. Anybody has any question? Very good, nobody. I'd like to thank the members of the panel and especially the Prof. Of course, you know he wasn't originally supposed to speak. The Minister of Finance was supposed to have been here, he wasn't able to attend. And we just drafted him right away, and of course, he lived up to the expectations. I think he deserves a serious round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you, other members. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you. I mean, you're doing very good work. I'm really impressed. I knew this guy when he was born. His mom is from my town. That's how I know him. I'm really impressed. Continue what you're doing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Kindly take them a group photograph. Can we give them a round of applause? Very illuminating, very incisive, and really quite revelatory. Thank you so very much for, such a sweeping insight into the state of the economy in the country. Thank you. Please, let's give them another round of applause, please. Thank you so very much. We would like to announce that while the panel was going on, the Honorable Minister for Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, also came in. Would like to most warmly welcome you. You came in just in time for your session. Your panel would be happening anytime soon. And also the ASEAN Power, Mr. President, would like to welcome all of you right now. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, the Vice President, ably represented by the Special Advisor in the Office of the President on General Matters, Dr. Aliu Modibo. The APC Professionals Forum is the bearer, the lamp of knowledge for the APC. We don't only dissect, like we dissected the manifesto of Mr. President when it was just 81 pages of the manifesto tagged renewed hope agenda for a better Nigeria. We went into the kernels, the nuts and the bolts of the manifesto, and now we're doing the scorecard. We've come back to reanalyze, revamp, review what has actually happened so far from when Mr. President mounted the saddle. And that is why we are having the scorecard today, to look at the energy sector and also look at the state of the economy and what we term Tinubu-nomics. At this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Tunde Rahman, SSA to the President on Media and Publicity in his own capacity, to briefly give us an interlude message before we get on with the power panel. Can we make welcome Tunde Rahman?
Thank you very much. It would have been so easy for me to just make a few remarks and glide over, riding on the existing protocols. But that would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the area of leaders that we have there. So you permit me, even as we are rounding up this session, to recognize the Vice President as represented by Special Advisor and former Minister of the FCT, Madam Modibo. Our Chairman, the Chairman of APC, and former Governor of Kano State, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, an icon and a warrior. I said a warrior because there are present challenges, and I know our chairman will overcome. May I also recognize the former governor of Bauchi State and the chairman of the APC Professional, or the board of trustees of APC Professional Group, Dr. Asiwaju. And of course, in the course of proceedings, the Minister of Power, Mr. Adebayo Adelabu came in, and SA Energy, I recognize you. I must say from the get-go that I came in my personal capacity. As a matter of fact, the President didn't know I am here, but I've always identified with the APC Professional Group. During the campaigns, they stood by His Excellency Asiwaju, and over time, they've always proffered professional and intellectual support to keep the government going. And having the Asiwaju Scorecard series at this time is very appropriate and auspicious, because the countdown is to 1 year anniversary of the President. So I would like to thank them on behalf of the President for giving this intellectual support. Like I said, I came in my personal capacity. I've listened to some of the people some of the leaders that have spoken before me, and the erudite panel, and some of the recommendations that they have made, the pieces of advice they have rendered. Dr. Okechukwu talked about the need to have national productivity, to scale up national productivity, which is also akin to what a member of the panel said: export, export, export. And that's the only way we can have a good value for our currency. And that no amount of wisdom that you have at the CBN will do the magic if you don't keep exporting in order to get an appropriate value for the naira. And Dr. Okechukwu again, who talked about the need to do something that would change the mood of the people. He talked about why don't the government pay up school fees at secondary and primary school? And my answer to that is that the president has talked about student loans, and mercifully enough, by Thursday, the portal for registration for student loan will go up live, and this is an opportunity for indigent students to sign in. And very soon also consumer credit, which will ensure that whether you are rich or poor, you can purchase things, civil servant, and pay later. It's like a loan without having to pay interest. That was, come up. So for me, there are two defining features of the President Tinubu administration in the last 1 year. One is the capacity, the courage to take bold decisions. The President has demonstrated that courage to take very bold decisions that have been found to be very appropriate, that have been commended, that have been applauded, like the removal of the ruinous fuel subsidy, and even the unification of the exchange rates. As with both decisions, it may not immediately throw up salutary outcomes, but because those decisions are right, in the fullness of time, it will happen, and Nigeria will get the right benefit from the decisions that have been taken. And one other thing again is the capacity to accept mistakes when mistakes are made. President Tinubu has always shown that he's not infallible. No leader is infallible actually. And when mistakes are made, he tries to make corrections. One of them is even the cyber security that was talked about. We found out that the timing is not right. It will be levying, putting too many taxes on the neck of the people, and the president has put a hold on it. So having said all of that, I am listening to the panel, and I will take these pieces of advice to the president, and I know that in the fullness of time, the full glory of this country will be restored. So I'd like to thank the members of the APC professional group for putting this together, and I urge them to continue in this fashion so that together we can work on the Nigeria project and ensure that Nigeria project land at the right point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think he deserves, a bigger round of applause, especially since we're sure that what we're conveying would be taken right into the bedroom of Mr. President, Mr. Tunde Rahman. Thank you so very much. Senior Special Assistant, Media and Publicity to His Excellency. Now, I recall that in the forward to the Renewed Hope agenda, the manifesto then, before the president became the president, when he was the candidate becoming the president, he wrote in the forward of the Renewed Hope agenda that the Renewed Hope agenda, 81 pages, living document, for a better Nigeria, was actually conceived after the president traveled the length and breadth of the entire country, harnessing the thoughts of people, listening to the citizens of this country. And for him, that is why, and also for the entire APC campaign train, that the Renewed Hope agenda is a listening document. And that has actually been epitomized and exemplified in the way President Tinubu has been carrying himself. He listens, he adjusts, he reshapes, he takes in the corrections, and like a true Democrat, he continues to bring that imprimatur into the governance, and that's why the governance is clearly a model for inclusive democracy. Would like to recognize the SA to the President on the Energy, Mrs. Olu. Actually, I need to wear my glasses, but you're most warmly welcome. It's very tiny, I'll do that, but you're most warmly welcome. Now we're going into the energy sector, and I think the lead is none other than the very young and very vibrant Honorable Minister for Power, who is a former Deputy Governor Operations of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He holds a first-class degree in accounting from Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. He's also taken up professional courses in some of these big-name institutions that a lot of us dream that one of these days our great-grandchildren might attend. You know them now: Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, Columbia, Kellogg's, Euromoney, the University of London. He has certificates from all of these universities. Chief Adebayo Adelabu cut his professional teeth with a resident career which started on what I would call a flying flight from PricewaterhouseCoopers, the renowned international firm of chartered accountants and management consultants. He is today the Honorable Minister for Power. He is a risk management banker, a financial controller, public sector business expert, a chief bank inspector, whatever that means. Let's make welcome the Honorable Minister for Power, who would be taking us and giving us the lead here on the second presentation in the second plenary, enhancing the power sector for economic growth. Chief Adebayo Adelabu, Honorable Minister of Power.
The Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented here, a special advisor, the chairman of our great party, and former two-time governor of Kano State, His Excellency Dr. Mark Ganduje, the chief host of today's event, and the chairman the Board of Trustees of APC Professionals Forum, Haji Isa Yuguda, the SA to the President on Energy, Mrs. Oluwe Jane, Your Excellencies present, distinguished senators, honorable members of the House of Reps here present, distinguished party leaders, senior government officials, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all add my voice to appreciate the APC Professionals Forum for organizing an event like this. It's not only educative, it also showcases the modest achievements of the present administration under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. And I'm also, by virtue of today's event, offering myself to be a member of the APC Professionals Forum. I will surely complete the registration immediately after this speech. Thank you so much for bringing us together. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to be here today to make a presentation on the way to improve the energy sector in terms of to our dear country. and I stand before you today to discuss this topic, which is of utmost importance to me, and I believe to millions of Nigerians, which is the revitalization of our nation's electricity sector to power the renewed hope agenda of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. It is no secret that a reliable and efficient electricity supply is the bedrock of any thriving economy. Without stable and reliable electricity supply, businesses will struggle, education suffers, healthcare service delivery stays suboptimal, and the full potential of our people and the nation remains unrealized. We are a country blessed with abundance of natural mineral resources and human resources. But these resources, which we have in abundance, have remained potentials for so long. And they will continue to remain potentials if they are not energized, which actually underline the importance and the inevitability of stability in our energy supply to households, to small businesses, to institutions, be it educational or health, and to industries. And we must give it the attention that it requires. Studies have consistently shown a clear correlation between increased power generation and economic growth. They are clearly, directly correlated. Reliable electricity empowers businesses to expand production, attract investment, and create jobs. It fuels vital sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and information technology, driving diversification and national competitiveness. Power, they say, is like the blood that the economy needs to run. If there's short supply of blood in human beings, we know what it leads to. And I want to state categorically that no matter the achievement that we have in any critical sector today, it's like we're just scratching the surface. Because no critical sector can have optimal performance without stable supply of electricity. And Mr. President was non-ambiguous in his speech at the beginning of this year, where he prioritized the power sector as an enabler, as a driver of other sectors. And he promised to give it the backing, to give it the support that it requires to achieve uncommon reform and the desired transformation. The sector has been developed with lots of non-performance in the past 60 years. Like I keep saying that, we've had over 40 ministers of power in this country. And these were very brilliant individuals, very cerebral, achievers in their own respect. They are also nationalistic and patriotic, and they have wanted to make this change. But the industry or the sector is so stubborn that it has not rewarded the effort of any of these past ministers in terms of their preferred destination for this sector. But Mr. President has promised that this administration is going to break the dams. We're going to transform it into a standard that will support businesses and industries and also give good lives to our people. And what we have witnessed in the past 8 months of our resumption is the relentless support of this president and the backing that he has given to the sector. There is no paper that we take to him in terms of reforms, of transformation. There is convinced that we will not sign off within a matter of days. So we are really getting the support of Mr. President. And just like I mentioned earlier, that electricity powers businesses. Most of the industrialized works that we know today, they got to the status they are today not by accident, but by critical planning and consistent implementation of a turnaround of their energy sector. We talk about South Korea today, and we mention Samsung, Hyundai, IKEA, LG, Dell, and so on and so forth. These are global giants in the industry. In the early 60s, these were very, very small companies. But the South Korean government was determined in making them global giants. Today, they can compete with any major company from the Western world. And they are into heavy industries and to all other sectors. How did they achieve it? South Korea is a population of 48 to 49 million people. Today, they generate electricity of 130,000 megawatt capacity. Yes, for 48, 49 million people. China today, they have a population of 1.4 billion. And we know that they are competing head to head, shoulder to shoulder with the US economy. They are generating 1.3 million megawatts of power to power their industry. And they are still counting. They have the highest hydro power plants, and they are still building new ones, even in renewable energy. So there's no government that plans to place its name on the global space without first prioritizing energy. When they say that South Korea, China, and the Far East countries, they're close to us here. South Africa generates over 50,000 megawatts of power on a yearly basis, and they are still doing more. We have Egypt that has also revolutionized the sector. We have Angola, we have Rwanda. So there's no better time than now for us to transform and reform our power sector. For too long, Nigerians have grappled with power outages and unreliable grid supply. This not only disrupts daily life, but hinders our nation's progress and impacts on the continent and global stage. However, I stand before you today, not with lamentations. Our days of lamentations are over. Our days of complaints are over. Our days of blame trading is over. If anybody tells you today they are still trying to find out what is wrong with the power sector in Nigeria, they are time wasters. We have completed a comprehensive diagnosis of the issues with this sector. And we have pocketed them. We know the issues from A to Z. That is what we did in my first 3 months of resumption. We engaged stakeholders, we consulted experts, we visited sites, and we compiled all these issues from A to Z. So there's no going back on trying to find out what is happening. We know what is wrong with us. And what we did in December was to come together at a retreat of all power sector stakeholders, Transco, between the 14th and 16th of December. For all 3 days, we discussed all these issues at length, and we provide solutions that we believe are practical, that we believe are workable. They are not just idealistic solutions. We are looking at realistic solutions that we can implement, that will give us a turnaround within the shortest possible time. And we came up with a list of those solutions. The stage we are today is the stage of implementation, of execution, of rolling up our sleeves and making sure that we attack the issues and we resolve whatever issue that is bedeviling this sector. So I will say that I'm standing before you today with a renewed hope and a vision for a brighter future, powered by a robust and sustainable power sector. In Nigeria, where factories beam 24/7, innovation flourishes in tech hubs, backed in light, vaccine storage in hospitals are adequately energized, and every child has the opportunity to learn under the glow of study lamp. This is the future we are striving for, a future where a steady flow of electricity unlocks a wave of economic prosperity, industrial growth, and a job creation. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR administration has wasted no time tackling power sector issues. We think it's rather too early for us to start counting our achievements. There are many steps that we have taken, but I believe this will graduate into giant steps. We have just spent 8 months in office, and I can tell you that if you look back and see what we have done in this industry is worth talking about. And I will make mention of a couple of them, even though we're still building on those foundation achievements. In just 1 year, the government has implemented a multi-pronged approach designed to address issues across the electricity supply industry, value chain, and to set the sector on the path of recovery and prosperity. Here are some of the key achievements of the government in the last 1 year. The first thing is to build a solid foundation, to build a legal platform for the transformation of the power sector. Because we say, first thing first. And what I mean by this is the enabling legislation. Mr. Tony Ramon mentioned something about this administration of the Mr. President taking bold and courageous steps. Within his first month of resumption of inauguration, he signed into law the new Electricity Act of 2023, which points at decentralization of the sector and the liberalization of the sector. This is a step that past administrations have shied away from. Electricity has always been a national centralized issue for 200 million Nigerians, still battling with 4,000 megawatts of power. Compared with the statistics I looked at earlier, of 130,000 for South Korea, 49 million, of 1.3 billion megawatts from China, 1.4 billion people, 200 million people still counting 4,000 megawatts. We are indeed suffering from energy poverty. So, structural reform of the industry through legislation. In June 2023, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu officially signed the 2023 Electricity Act into law, marking a significant milestone in Nigeria's electricity sector. It is indeed a milestone for those that were alive or that were born before the 70s, in the 60s. We used to have ECN, Electricity Company of Nigeria. It was a national institution. It graduated into National Electric Power Authority, NEPA, which we met. Later it became Power Holding Company of Nigeria, PHCN. And the privatization, 2013, unbundled all the segments of the power sector value chain into generation, into transmission, and into distribution. As it is, these are the successor companies. Generations were still operating at wholesale level. TCN is still a national institution. That's the Transmission Company of Nigeria. While these schools are more of regional companies covering multiple states, it was still a centralized system. But this act not only liberalized it, allowing private sector investment into all these three segments, it also allows subnational governments, talk about states and local governments, to play and participate in this sector. So a state can have, I think our president deserves a round of applause for that courage and boldness to sign this into law. Not just holding everything at the central level, allowing 32 state governments to participate in the provision of electricity, allowing the 774 local government to participate, depending on the segment where they want to play. And the new law focuses on enhancing the regulation and management of electricity marketing with the active participation of the subnational governments. This has resulted in the process of devolution of regulatory powers to 3 states. This is not just signing into law. It is a shared determination to actualize it. It is display of sincerity that the president means whatever he says, that he wants to talk. We have granted regulatory autonomy to 3 states already: Enugu, Ekiti, and Ondo states, to set up their own electricity market. So from a central wholesale market, we are now going to multiple markets. You have the wholesale market and you have the state market. And I want to use this opportunity to make a clarification that there is no inconsistency in government pronouncements. The law is there that the states will be given regulatory autonomy, and nobody can go against the law. Nobody can do otherwise. It is already legislated. But the mode, the style, and the timing of implementation is at the discretion of the people in charge for us to achieve success.